What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well so far. Let's cut straight to the chase. Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 came out about 2 weeks ago, and they were quite spectacular. I love them. I mean, I've been waiting a large chunk of my life for these chapters to come out, and they finally did, and I have lots of thoughts, and so I figured you guys were due for just an overview of my thoughts, even more than just an overview, like a pretty in-depth review or an analysis of my thoughts on both chapters and how good they are. Spoiler, they're both amazing, in my opinion. I thought that 3 was a little weak at first. Now I realize that it is peak. 4 is peak, always was peak to me. So let's get into a discussion about why these chapters are good, some minor flaws that I may have found, but mostly the good things that I observed and enjoyed about these chapters that I played 3 times in the first 2 days they came out. So, a lot to talk about. Before we get into that, though, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. It helps me out a lot. You can always change your mind later. So yeah, thank you. So, Deltarune Chapter 3. We start off with just a massive lore dump right off the gate. We had so many unanswered questions from the first 2 chapters just answered in the first 5 minutes of Chapter 3. It was a field day for theorists, both casual and insane alike, to get lots of questions answered. We have the question of Susie's living conditions. Is she homeless? Is she poor? It seems that she is poor. She has a home, or she has a room at least. We see her room with a pretty beat-up bed and a poster of their version of Godzilla, the Susie-zilla reference, I suppose. And then also the chair in the middle of the room from the Darker Than Dark webpage. And this is interesting because I don't know why they chose this chair. I guess just because she has a chair in her room, and Rousey uses it to describe what happens in the dark. So things in the dark become harder to, make a shape out of. Your mind can play tricks on you, he basically says. And this chair is used as an example of something that is changing in the dark. And then when it becomes darker than dark, that's when, like, the photon readings negative kind of thing from Gaster, right, and from Undertale, a dark fountain is formed, a dark world is formed. So we have the answer to Darker Than Dark, the chair, Susie's home life, at least partially, answered. We also, just in that first scene, once again, we see the image underscore friend it has its face on the body of the amalgamate endogeny. Is that the one? Very, very weird moment there, and then it jump scares you actually too, which I think is pretty neat. And also, we tackle a pretty deep problem right away in the chapter with Susie kind of having the bad news broken to her about what the Dark Worlds actually are. Rousey seems to want to keep Susie pretty, unaware of a lot of things that go on, and he wants to keep her happy. Well, when Susie starts talking about the festival, there's a bit of a problem because Rousey can't go to the festival. So, this is it was set up in Chapter 2 at the very end with Susie asking, if you could choose one person to go to the festival with you, who would you choose? Susie now wants Rousey to go with us, which we knew from the end of Chapter 2. And Rousey, since he says, yeah, I'd love to, it sounds cool. But Susie keeps pressing him, and he's like, I'm sorry, I can't. And we get some really interesting talk sprites from Rousey, who looks pretty sad. In both these chapters, Rousey goes from, in the span of these 2 chapters, he really is not doing too good here. And it's kind of sad to see. He is sad about his condition as a Darkener, being unable to go to the light world, unable to be there for Susie and Chris. He essentially just says, I exist for you guys to have fun adventures. I exist to serve you. Don't worry about me. Do what makes you happy. Live your lives. I'll be here if you need me, right? It's kind of sad to see him not value himself as much as you would hope he would, because, if you're a fan of Rousey, then you think that he deserves to be valued, right? So, that's a sad moment. We see, once again, lots of talk sprites that are new, with Rousey looking kind of sad and forlorn. And just generally a pretty dark opening with the whole explanation of what the Dark World actually is and what, holds back Rousey from being a true friend, or at least what he believes is a true friend to Chris and Susie. Now, that is interrupted with, bang, Tenna, who is an incredible villain, Villain's a strong word, an incredible boss of this Dark World. He is not what anyone expected, I don't think. He is an entirely different art style from the rest of the game. He looks like maybe like a Sega Genesis style character. I'm not very familiar with that kind of style necessarily, but he looks very different, like a 3D almost kind of sprite. And it's hilarious. It's great. He hits lots of cool dance moves. Some of that, it's amazing. I love Tenna. Tenna is not what I thought he was going to be, or what I hoped he'd be. We still haven't seen a truly pure evil Toby Fox villain yet. And I was hoping that we would see that with Tenna. I was hoping that he would be kind of irredeemable. He'd be, just evil, right? Which would explain why we wouldn't be able to bring him back to the Grand Fountain, because he would be too evil to be redeemed, and he would have to, stay and get sealed along with the fountain, or he would just straight up die, which we'll get to in a minute here. But Tenna's great. He's hilarious. He starts off with this video, this like analog style video where he like introduces himself with Mr. Ant Tenna's TV time. It's one of the best moments in the entire game so far. Is that tape so good? He also name drops Mike as one of the first things he does. So Mike is also here as well, kind of ish. So lots happens that people have been waiting for years in the first 10 minutes of this chapter. It's insane just how fast paced it gets. It's crazy. So I think Tenna's introduction is great. Tenna is hilarious. I love him. I do hope that someday we do get a pure evil villain from Toby Fox, because we still haven't seen that yet. And it'd be nice to see someone who truly just means ill. Like, even later on, I'll talk about the Titans, for example. The Titans are the closest thing that we have to a pure evil villain, but they're not even really evil. They're just kind of like, that's what they're meant to do. Like, they exist to destroy, right? So it's kind of hard to call them evil. I want a villain that sentiently, consciously chooses to be just bad, right? Like the Joker, for example. They can have a sad backstory, but still be doing something bad because they want to be bad. I still want that. King was that for a bit, and then he became just kind of a clown. After we defeated him and put him in jail, he started being just goofy and silly. I want someone that just starts off evil and stays evil throughout the rest of the game. So Tenna is not that. The Knight probably won't be that. Mayor Holiday probably won't be that. And the Titans probably, I just would say, aren't that either. But maybe someday, soon, we'll find out. But back to Chapter 3 on its own here. We get the main gameplay of Chapter 3 with Tenna in this game inside of a game. So he gives us these boards on his game show, in which serve as a distraction from the whole discussion with Rousey and Susie and what Rousey is. I think that they embrace it as a moment to have, a fun adventure. It'll end up being our last kind of fun adventure before things get really serious later on. So we should cherish these moments before things get wild. And so we play these boards. And these boards are like Game Boy style games inside of the Dark World. So Tenna gives us controllers, and we play, and we get a cool perspective where the characters are sitting in a couch, and we see from like we see their back in the screen, and Tenna's there, and they're talking. Lots of funny moments and dialogue there that I really appreciate. And these parts aren't my favorite part of the game. Probably my least favorite part of the chapter is the stuff that occurs in the like game inside the game, in the boards, because, well, for lack of better words, I was bored at times. Like, I think the game does a good job of allowing us to feel the exhaustion of the characters in the game, because after board 1 or 2, the characters are kind of like, okay, we're done. Like, it was fun, but we have to go seal the fountain now. I'm sorry, Tenna, you're a cool guy, but we have to leave. To which Tenna crashes out and kind of starts the final act there. But I feel like the game does too good a job of letting us feel what the characters are feeling there, because I felt pretty exhausted of doing the Game Boy style thing, at least the first playthrough. I've gotten better at it now that I know where things are and stuff, so it's actually pretty fun now, actually. Ironically, it's more fun on future playthroughs, But here it's like, the first playthrough is like, okay, how much of the chapter is going to be this? Like, can I get on with it? Now, it's not to say that there's no lore here, because there is lore found in these games, especially with the secret boss stuff, which I'll mention in a minute here. But in the purely like main content, there's some lore. There's some possible discussions of the control, and like Susie swaps controls with Chris, and like whether or not we can control Susie and what allows us to control Chris, that kind of stuff. There's obviously, when you're playing a game and you're using a controller, there is those kinds of themes which are also explored in the hidden boss later on. But generally, not my favorite part of the chapter. Probably my least favorite part of both chapters is these Game Boy style games. Once again, they're still good and they're still fun and well made, and there's still important stuff there, but just it's like okay-ish for me, at least. I still think it's good. I still think that it's like high quality. Just for me personally, I didn't enjoy it as much as I think others probably did. That's okay though, because we get some other moments as well that are pretty cool, like the physical challenges. But between each games, we get a cooking challenge, which is just a pretty fun minigame, and then we get the Lightner's Live moment from the trailer, which is one of the standout moments, one of the best moments in all 4 chapters, is that rhythm game, because the song is amazing. I think that the song has a lot to say about the lore. I think that this chapter is great, because it's, when I first played it, I wasn't entirely sold on it, because I was like, okay, this feels like kind of like just a waste of time. It's fun at times, not always fun, because I wasn't a big fan of the Game Boy stuff at first, at least. I think it's fun now, once again, but not at first. I didn't think it was. But I was like, okay, this is, it's fun at times, but what's the point, right? Toby had said it'd be kind of more of a laid-back kind of chapter as far as story. He lied to us. This is one of the most important chapters for the story so far, I think, actually. There's, or at least the character dynamics here. There's so much built here that is so well executed with Tenna and Rousey. And so Tenna's point here is that he wants to be valued as a Darkner. He wants, because he was around when the Holiday family and the Dreamer family were always hanging out, and their families weren't, broken back then. So he'd have, a bunch of people always watching him, gathered around him, and he misses that. And he wants to, keep going back to that and provide Chris a source of, escape. But in this case, it's less of escapism through television or media, like we thought it was going to be, and more of an escape through nostalgia. So, like, showing us things that Chris used to do with Azrael, or with Des and Noelle, for example, like cooking, or singing and playing music, like the 2 physical challenges show. So, I really appreciate that it's not the simple, like, oh, TV, you can turn off your brain and watch TV. It's more about going back to those old times with lost friends and loved ones and family. Because now, obviously, both the Holiday families and the Dreamer family are both broken, right? There's divorce, there's missing people, possibly dead people. There's just not very great vibes in families, across families. Even we find out that Toriel is not a big fan of the mayor for whatever reason. So there's a lot of brokenness there, and Tenna wants to kind of go back to those good times when he was watched and he provided people with a way to escape the struggles of the real world. That is a great contrast to Rousey, who thinks that he is unimportant, and I think there's a good thing here which I think is pretty directly kind of stated in the final moments with Tenna when we're trying to talk to him, where we realize that, like, Rousey is important. We get Rousey to realize he is valuable as a Darkner, the same way that Tenna believes that he is. So that's great. Once again, we get lots of breadcrumbs about Des and Azrael and their connections to Chris and their families. There's so much character stuff being done here that I think is great. Not just the main core characters, but also the side characters, which are going to be important, I believe. I think it's, as far as the chapters go, it is the best chapter in handling those dynamics in discrete ways, but also in more direct ways. I think it's amazing how it integrates the gameplay, like the cooking game and in the rhythm game, with kind of those hints of what life used to be like for Chris and their connection to their friends and family. It's amazing. I'll put it that way. It's spectacularly done. Now, let's talk about the secret boss stuff, which people seem to be kind of mixed on. So, one of the good things about the boards is that they're pretty replayable. I'm not sure if they're, like, literally replayable in the chapter. I'm pretty sure they're not. But they're replayable, like, on restarting the chapter. I actually did it a few times because there's different scores you can get, ranks you can get. There's A rank is like, there's also B and C as well. But I got A rank the first time. There's also an S rank, which gives you access to a secret room. There's also T rank, which I'm not really sure what that does, to be honest. There's also a Z rank. If you suck that much, it also gives you access to the hidden room. But this hidden room, which is, like, it's neat because you know it's there, so the game, like, tells you, hey, there's a secret here, which you can kind of assume is the hidden boss area. And you know how to get it. You just gotta be good enough to get it, which I eventually was. And so if you get S rank or Z rank or T rank, then you get into this room. It's a dump. The song that plays is called Dump. And it's very run down, very just different from the rest of the area, the green room of the chapter. And there are characters in here that just feel a little strange. Like there's Ram, who I have a video about coming up soon, who is kind of, you know, how do I phrase this? People are led to believe that he's going to be the hidden boss because he talks about freedom and he talks about control, and he clearly wants Chris to have freedom. However, the hidden boss is seemingly not Ram, but this, I guess the Shadow Mantle, actually. I'll go ahead and say it. If you go into the S rank room, upon getting S rank in both of the two main rounds of the board of the game, then you will get to play a different game, the original game, as Ram puts it. Kind of the prototype, which I think this is insane because I think Ram kind of just tells us what's going on with Deltarune and Gaster's intent and Toby's intent. So I'll make a video on that later. But as far as Chapter 3 goes, this game gives you a sword, which I think this is why they're calling it the sword route now. It gives you a sword in the Game Boy style game and allows you to go around as Chris with this abandoned old controller that Chris finds. So that kind of follows the topic of being abandoned, right? As far as the hidden bosses go. And you can go around and get stronger by killing monsters in the game. And I think this is great because this is what points towards a weird route. One of the main complaints that I heard about Chapter 2 is that the weird route is almost essential for understanding kind of the full complexity of the story that it's trying to set up with control and whatnot. But it's hard to find. Well, this game, Chapter 3, kind of retroactively gives us clues of how to access the weird route with things like the white cloak and snow and ice and freezing birds, that kind of stuff. It's a great way of doing it. And additionally, if you do it all the way through, you get to, once again, there's lots of lore here that I won't talk about a whole lot, but you get to fight the hidden boss, which is a pretty challenging Legend of Zelda. I should clarify that the board styles are like Link's Awakening kind of style Legend of Zelda, which is, I think, that was referenced in one of the sweepstakes URLs, but we get this Zelda-type boss fight that is pretty good. It has, you know, attack patterns that are challenging but easy to learn, so it feels satisfying. It's not impossible. It doesn't take that long, actually. I got it in maybe, like, less than 10 tries, possibly, but it still feels challenging, and it is challenging, but it's satisfying to do. And so you beat this boss in this Zelda style, and it presumably is the mantle itself that Sean was talking about, and it gives you the Shadow Mantle. Now, the Shadow Mantle is an alright armor, but its main perk is that it is resistant to dark and star type attacks. Now, this is where the true hidden boss comes in, because this Shadow Mantle, Shama said in the previous chapter, you know, you guys are strong, but the next boss might be impossible to beat without the Shadow Mantle. So here, we have the mantle. Where's the boss? Because it's not Ram. It's not anything that takes place in that dump area. In fact, you don't even need the mantle to fight the boss. It's actually the boss that happens after the Tenna boss fight, which is the Roaring Knight. This reveal was insane to me, because it came just out of nowhere. That was the last thing I expected, was a knight fight, not even like a knight like hint or reveal, just straight up the fight against the knight in Deltarune Chapter 3. Blew my mind. I was speechless. If you want to see my reactions, the streams are up. I streamed like 24 hours worth of content in the first 2 days. However, the last 4 hours of the first stream got cut off because it was 16 hours long and YouTube only allows 12-hour VODs, so oh well. But after you fight Tenno, which the Tenno fight is essentially just WarioWare with various challenges, like short snippets of challenges throughout the chapter, like the cooking or the rhythm game and other stuff as well. And it's okay. The song is pretty good. The song, It's TV Time, is pretty good. It's not my favorite boss theme yet. It's definitely not the worst, but it's not as good as Queen's boss theme. But the boss is pretty good. It feels a bit anticlimactic, I guess, which is because it's not the climax. The climax is when we convince Tenno. Tenno is not a bad guy, I already told you. He just wants Chris and their family to watch him and be happy. So we were able to convince Tenno pretty easily to change his ways. And I'll mention that Tenno has Toriel held captive for some reason, which you find out pretty soon. So Toriel does not ever wake up in the Dark World. She's left unaware, which I know people are probably a bit disappointed in, but I think it's fine the way it is. So he gives us Toriel back, only to be, in this pretty triumphant scene, only to be immediately just, boom, he's slashed to bits by this figure, this almost amalgamate type figure. It looks animalistic, it's dripping. This black, like shining figure that has antlers that kills Tenno, or severely injures him. If you spare people, then he gets repaired. But if you didn't, then he just dies. Which I was right about. He did, in fact, in one route, he does die, and then you wake up, and the screen is shattered, so I called that. But the knight appears and tries to steal Toriel with some, like hand, tracker beam kind of thing. We fight back, we attack Toriel. Or, no, that's not true. We attack the knight, and the battle begins. Now, normally this battle should be a scripted loss. The knight is very strong, has insane attacks, insane music. The music here is pretty good. I'll go ahead and say the music here has possibly some of the highest highs, but I'm not a big fan of a lot of the Game Boy style stuff in this chapter. It's better than the Sweet Kappa Cake stuff. But TV World, the overworld theme, is comparable to a Cyber's World in my opinion. And the Knight theme, Black Knife, is amazing. So it just is the song Nightmare Night, essentially. It is a remix of that, which, once again, the fans called it because it goes so hard. We fight the knight. The knight normally just kills us instantly with this effect called Swoon, which means that if you drop below 0 health, then your health goes to -999, which means that you can't really come back from that. Besides having a revivement, of course. However, if you have the Shadow Mantle, or are just insane at dodging, then the fight can actually go on. And you can fight the knight until it gets to about 75 HP, which it unleashes this amazingly animated, all-out attack, similar to very similar actually to Azrael's Hyper Goner. And the knight fight here, which you get past that and then you hit it and it gets kind of fed up and goes away. So the story doesn't change a whole lot, regardless of what you do, because the knight still flees, or rather, Undyne comes. This is insane. Undyne comes into the Dark World and attacks the knight, and the knight grabs her and runs off with her. So that still happens regardless. If you beat the knight in quotes, then the knight drops the Shadow Crystal, which seems to have chipped off of its sword. There's lore there for sure. And then also drops the Black Shard, which actually might be the part that comes from the sword. I'm not entirely sure yet. But either way, these are good items, obviously. There's a crystal. There's a very, very good weapon that does extra damage to Dark and Star enemies, which is pretty helpful later on in Chapter 4. But this knight fight might be the best Toby Fox fight to date. The fight is so good. It's amazing. I can't... it's better than Sans. It's maybe even harder than Sans. Very challenging, very punishing, very rewarding at the same time. Very satisfying. So the knight fight is great. I love it. Very good. One of the best parts of both chapters. That's about it for Chapter 3. I'll go ahead and say that the after you beat the Game Boy boards, the overworld area is pretty good. Once again, good music. I'm not a big fan of the La Nino and El Nina boss fight stuff. I think the song Rooter Buster that plays with them and some of the other mini boss themes, I guess this is like the new kind of mini boss theme maybe, is amazing. I love Rooter Buster. Great song. The actual fights themselves aren't that great. They go on for a long time. I don't find the whole like divorce arc to be very entertaining, to be honest. Especially the rules fight. The worst of the two rules fights so far. He's just not very fun to fight. It goes on forever, and the mechanics are just not great. I'm not a big fan. I think that sadly, they're very well designed characters, and they're very interesting and funny in some cases. But La Nino and El Nino are the sweet gapping cakes of this chapter. Don't really do it for me. I kind of dread those parts of the chapter because they're long and boring, in my opinion. But in general, on the whole, Chapter 3, for what it does for the character dynamics and the lore and how well it, world builds, that kind of stuff, and also just the mechanics and whatnot, it's the best chapter of the first 3. I love it. Amazing. Now, we talk about the best chapter of the first 4, which is Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is spectacular. It is one of my favorite pieces of media, just of all time. Which Deltarune already was my favorite game of all time. Chapter 4 alone becomes just, it's cinema. It's absolute cinema, and here's why. So it starts off, the opening of Chapter 4, very different kind of vibe. So the knight got away, it failed to get Toriel, but it got Undyne, and it brought her to the bunker, or the shelter as it's called, which has a dark fountain inside of it, and a code, a lock on it, which features 3 symbols, a police badge, a pine tree, and the game has a title drop at the end of Chapter 3, and it has the Deltarune, which is where it cuts off. And then Chapter 4 starts with an opening with one of the new leitmotifs, which is beautiful. I'll say, the music here is just absolutely astoundingly beautiful. Very different kind of vibe from previous chapters, but it's just hauntingly pretty. I don't know how else to put it. It's just spectacular. And visually, very blue, kind of watery colors, very just ethereal kind of vibes. That the logo changes into like a blue, watery kind of version, and then it shatters and stuff. So and kind of snows down. It's so pretty. Now, the next chapter begins with kind of like a whiplash, like boom, we're awake now. We sealed the fountain. So I forgot about this part. We saw we ended outside of the bunker, Chapter 3. Chapter 4, we open up, and we went back to seal the Chapter 3 fountain. So we're there now. And we seal it, we wake up, and Toriel's there, unaware of what happened. She had a bad dream or whatever. And then we eat pancakes and go to church. Now, at the church, we kind of debrief with Susie about finding out some info about how to get in the bunker. We need to save Undyne. In order to save Undyne, we need to get in the bunker. Or the shelter. So, they're like, okay, pine trees. Who likes trees? The holidays like pine trees. So we need to find out some info at church about that. So we talk to Alphys and Rudy and Noelle and Toriel, for example, after a church service, which, it's a pretty cool scene. Not much to say about it yet, though. And then we end up getting some info about the mayor and whatnot, and going to Noelle's house. Now, I will say, this is where the extended Light World segment takes place that has save points and stuff, because you can go to Castletown and do stuff there. If you brought Tenna back, he's there. I'm not really sure the logistics of, bringing a TV to the school on a Saturday or whatever, but still, whatever. He's there. You can walk around town and talk to NPCs. There's the diner scene. There's just lots to do and interact with here. So that's the Toby Fox's, his comment about the Light World save point. That's why. Once again, I'm not sure it was really necessary. It does help, especially on the weird route for Noelle's house, where you can make some choices that, matter, ironically enough. So, I understand why. It was probably a good idea, but I didn't use it a whole lot. The problem I have here is that, while there is a lot to do, the urgency is not there. I'll go ahead and be honest. this is my one and only kind of issue with this chapter, is that the chapter before, at the end of chapter 3, feels like, oh crap, like we are cooked. The knight just came here, clapped us, tried to take Toriel, stole Undyne, and brought her into this bunker that has a dark world inside of it, with a key that we don't know how to get into. And then we come back in the next chapter, and it's like, yeah, we're at church drinking sick fruit juice and going to Castletown and, you know, having fun and this and that. And it's like, okay, I get that, but at the same time, their lives, like, at risk right now. Like, we need to hurry up. So there's not really an urgency here at first, which I think is kind of a problem. I wish it'd be a pretty easy fix. This is a very minute problem, but still something that I noticed. It'd be a very easy fix if Susie was like, hey, I know it's fun to talk to Sans or whatever, but we need to, like, find this password and save Undyne. Just, like, every once in a while. But instead, she seems very just unusually chill with what's happening. So, after we go to Noelle's house, we talk to her. There's some cute Suzelle moments. We get to see Dessa's room. Lots of lore, actually, here. Just a lot happens. It's actually pretty crazy. The weird route is entirely different can of worms. It goes full, like, DDLC, like, glitchy game, absolutely terrifying stuff happens. We end up gaining control of Noelle, seemingly, just, like, fully, like, implanting, like, possibly a seed of the soul inside of her. We get some actually really good characterization of Chris. We find out that Chris is working for someone over the phone with the knight, presumably at this point as well. And also the mayor, who is terrifying. We see that she's terrifying, probably homophobic as well. So I think Toriel is safe of the allegations. I think that Mayor Holiday is now the new homophobe in the area. And she's terrifying. Just, whoa, so scary. But we get some cute moments with Noelle and Susie. We get to see Chris be themselves for the first time. We get to find out that they're actually a pretty caring person. Chris is not evil. Chris is working for the knight and for the mayor, but the mayor is also working for the knight apparently as well, it seems. But Chris is just a kid that wants the best for their friends. Even Rousey, we find out through some interactions that Chris cares about Rousey. They obviously care about Noelle and Susie a lot. So I'm glad that we can finally put aside that Chris sucks, Chris is evil, Chris's mean things away, because I feel bad for Chris. I don't like what Chris is doing perhaps right now. Maybe there's a reason for it, but for the time being, I can recognize that Chris wants the best for their friends, at least for now, right? So that's the way I see it. But the Noelle's house moments in both the weird route and the normal route are both spectacular. Lots of cool stuff there. We go to the church later on. I forgot why we go there. Oh, it's because I think the house, Chris's house is locked. Toriel has the key. She's at choir practice. So we go to the church, and it is a dark world. And this dark world is the best dark world to date. Beautiful music, beautiful scenery. It's not really, like, based on much, it seems. It just looks cool. These, like, big, like, cathedrals in the background. These, like, libraries and old wooden... Well, for example, we find a Gerson. I'll go ahead and say it. We find an old man. He's Gerson. He's piles of Gerson's dust, essentially, that Alvin has kept in his study, which turns into Gerson's study. So it's this place feels like an old, like, abandoned cathedral kind of place with an old, beautiful wooden study with Gerson there, the old man there. The music is beautiful. They do cool stuff with sound in this chapter. Sound is pretty important. There's this kind of, like, echolocation kind of feature that is important in both a boss battle later and also in navigating the overworld. We have a climbing mechanic, which we saw in chapter or in the trailer rather, and that comes from a boss as well. It's pretty cool. I'm not even sure where to start. This dark world there's a lot that goes on. So we meet the old man, and he's cool. He wants to teach Susie. This is a very Susie chapter. Susie is the main character of this chapter, hands down. Susie is kind of not sold on learning healing because Rousey is being kind of weird about it. He's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't learn healing. Like, if you, well, he doesn't say that, but he kind of implies it. Like, you know, if someone's hurt, just, you know, I'll take care of it, right? Even though Susie wants to learn and help. So the old man kind of helps Susie be more confident in in her ability to heal people instead of hurt them, which is pretty cool. The dynamic between the old man and Susie is amazing. I'll go ahead and say that the secret boss here is a boss against the old man in his true form, the Hammer of Justice, and Susie. You play as Susie alone, and you get the green soul with a bit of an added twist like the yellow soul had, where you have 8 directions instead of 4. So, this is a great boss. Probably my favorite hidden boss yet, because he's straight up just, like, every line of dialogue he has is just lore, lore, lore. He possibly just tells us the rest of the game, which I'll talk about later on in a different video, because there's a lot to unpack there. But, just generally, amazing boss fight. Not hidden to where it's like impossible to find. I found it on the first try, the first playthrough. But it's hidden where it's satisfying. And there's lots of cool mechanics here. There's a piano playing kind of mechanic to unlock doors and stuff. There's climbing. There's the echolocation type thing I told you about. Lots of cool stuff in this dark world. There's the boss fight against Jackenstein, this darkness creature, who is pretty funny. Spawned one of the more iconic memes of these chapters so far with the "you're taking too long," that whole thing. I think it's hilarious. The boss fight does go on for a bit long. It's a cool mechanic with like the Pac-Man style, or like the world's hardest game kind of style, like moving around and collecting coins to shine a light on him with our ability. But it takes a long time. It's a long fight. But that is about it for the first section of the Dark World, I think. I think I've about summed it up. It's amazing. It only gets better when we go to the fountain. We are able to open the door to seal the fountain. Oh, which we open the door by there's this big piano with there's this room with massive bells. And the piano here is the one that will kind of give us the ability to open the door to the fountain if we play the right notes. Now, the sheet music that we're given is long and complicated, and the player is more than likely not going to be able to play it themselves. So Chris steps in and takes over and plays a beautiful arrangement of the song, the hymn that is played in the church service, or sung in the church service by the choir, with Noel and Toriel and others. Which is like, I think if I recall, it's like the Legend and Don't Forget mashup, if I recall correctly. Beautiful, haunting hymn, and then we get an arrangement of it via Chris on the piano, which is one of the best tracks in the whole game so far. It's amazing. So that opens the door to the fountain. We go there. The knight is already there and gets away. So we need to encounter the knight and stop the knight. Then the knight has fled into the main church, like, sanctuary. We are merely in the lobby of the church in that dark world. There is a different dark world in the sanctuary that the knight has retreated to and locked us out of. So we seal that fountain. See that there's a lock on the door of the sanctuary. And Susie has this grand idea to create a dark fountain again to find the solution to the lock by talking to the old man. So she does this, makes Dark Fountain an awesome scene. Beautifully animated, very cool. She creates a brand new dark world. And we go there and we explore and stuff. And the scenery here, the music here, this is the best area in the game so far. It looks beautiful. It sounds beautiful. It's so... the story and lore is beautiful. The dialogue is beautiful. I'm getting a feeling in my heart right now thinking about it. It's so, so, so good. Please, if you have not played the chapter yet, please go play it. Even if you already know what happens, please go play it for yourself. This part is so good. And so we go through all this, and we get a boss in which we encounter what appears to be the old man, or Gerson, in the dark. So he starts attacking us with sound-based attacks. So he kind of uses stereo to tell you which way it's going to come from. And so we do that, and we fight this creature, which Susie still believes to be the old man, until Susie casts her healing magic, which lights up the room and shows his face is this grotesque, monstrous, kind of like zombie face. Then Rousey comes and like one-shots this boss, just boom, he's gone, which is pretty interesting. And then Rousey reveals that it was not the old man, but one of the statues that had come to life. because it takes a certain kind of darkness to revive a darkener, or revive someone's dust into darkness. Which, the fact that we're talking about turning people's dust or monsters' dust into darkeners, it's pretty interesting because it implies that it might happen later again. So there's a really good scene where there's Susie and Rousey are in front of this in a dark room, but they're in front of these windows that are casting light in, and Susie crashes out at Rousey. And Rousey is literally the GOAT of these chapters because his character is so compelling. He is a character that knows too much. He knows the prophecy. He knows what is going to come, but he doesn't want to tell people because, well, as he says, he knows so much that he doesn't know what to say. It seems like his best interest is keeping some things hidden to make sure that the characters are, stay happy because of what's to come. And he has this full-on meltdown. Susie and Rousey stay friends and they recover, pretty fast. But this scene with like the thunder and the lightning lighting up the room via the window, and Susie like yelling at Rousey, and Rousey just on the ground like so unsure and so just scared because he doesn't know what to do with what he is and what he knows. Very compelling. And he says, yeah, there's essentially he doesn't want Susie to see the end of the prophecy. He doesn't want Susie to know what happens, so from now on, he should go ahead and, make sure that each room is safe of the prophecy, because this Dark World, this Dark World does this cool thing where it, the prophecy will just appear in places on the wall and kind of light up. And if you break one of them, it'll reappear in a future area. So the prophecy has been leading up to this reveal, which seems to involve Susie pretty heavily, as far as Susie believes, at least. I'm not entirely convinced that it actually is her, but Susie's been led to believe that she's the major part of the prophecy, maybe the major part of the prophecy, and Rousey doesn't want her to see what happens. They're close to seeing what happens in order for the worlds to be saved, but Rousey does not want Susie to see because he's afraid that it'll make things harder, possibly in these end of times, as it could possibly be. So after that scene, we get the key or the passcode to the lock. We seal Susie's fountain. We come back, and we go in the main fountain in the sanctuary, in which we find the knight. The knight is cornered. Susie believes that the knight is not strong enough in the light world to take them on. So if they seal this fountain, then the knight will just be in the light world for them to fight in the light world, and then win. It'll all be over, right? However, the knight has one more ace in their sleeve, and they, in this just super chilling moment. So imagine this: we climbed all the way up to the knight. We even had this moment where I think this was before the knight moment. This one of the best scenes in the whole game, where the soul lights up, and the three characters march towards the knight as the knight has this repelling force. They're marching towards the knight. The knight is throwing swords at them. They're getting hit. They're taking blows for each other. They're vowing to fight together, no matter what. And it's so epic. This song called "A Dark Place" plays, which is a remix or a different version of "The Dark Truth," and it's so emotionally just powerful, so good. I love the Fun Gang so much. And we get to the knight after that amazing scene, and the knight's like, "Oh yeah, I'm done. You think so?" Watch this. And stabs the ground again and creates a new dark fountain. Rousey's like, "No, don't do it," with this terrified talk sprite. "Don't make another fountain." And then stabs the ground and then erupts this fountain that looks like the cover art of the game. The blue fountain with the character standing in front of it. Essentially, it looks like that. It erupts out of the ground and then solidifies into this gray pillar. And the pillar cracks, and it's full of these gross black eyeballs, or black and white eyeballs, which look like the cliffs or the Titans area in chapter 1. And then it cracks, giant arm juts out of it. It's insanely well animated. It's visually the best part of the chapter, or of the whole game, is these last couple chapters. Or I'm so bad at talking. Visually, the best part of the entire game is the last few minutes of this chapter, or the last few moments at least, where this Titan erupts out, its arm juts out, its hand has like eyes on it, and it like blasts the characters. They're like, "What's that?" Ralphie's like, "It's a Titan. It's, you know, the embodiment of darkness. Like, we can't beat it." That kind of stuff. And we're like, "Oh crap! That's a Titan. Like that's a real life Titan. Like the Roaring Titans kind of deal. Like it's like, what? We're seeing the Roaring, or we're seeing a Titan in Chapter 4 of Deltarune? Where do you go from here? It's so balls to the wall insane. I just can't freaking believe it even happened. So we climb up the Titan, which the production quality here is amazing. He made a 3D climbing surface that, you know, like you actually get perspective and stuff on the character models and sprites. You can climb up it like it's 3D essentially. It is a 3D game now. These parts, you're climbing up the Titan's body, and you slash it in the giant eyeball, because like the fountain is like hatching this Titan. Like the Titan is like in this like fountain egg essentially, and it's hatching out of it. And you slash the eyeball, and these giant wings come out of it. It's like a Kirby kind of boss. It's like fighting God essentially at this point, which is it basically it feels like either Kirby or Persona, where you're just like the final boss is fighting God, and it has these like wings and like angelic properties and stuff, and these eyeballs and whatnot. And so we help it hatch essentially. Like us attacking the eyeball does nothing besides only help it hatch further essentially. So when that happens, we fall down. The Titan starts like destroying the ground with his giant hands. We're being chased. We get encountered by these like Titan like fetuses, kind of. They're called Titan Spawn. This is one of the first battles in the game that has no cool pun or funny kind of like gimmick. It just is a terrifying creature, one that the game doesn't really punish you for attacking. It is a baby Titan, and Titans are the embodiment of darkness and made to destroy, so the game does not punish you for fighting it, essentially. But you are shown a mechanic that allows you to, you know, gain TP and then brighten your soul to banish the Titans, or the spawn at least. Ow, 1 second. And so, this is a cool pre-fight to the true final boss. Which, once again, this is not a goofy fight with a cool pun in the name or whatever. This is just a raw, scary, intense battle with its own battle theme. Which, I'll also mention this. Chapter 4 has a brand new battle theme called From Now On, which I assume we'll play from now on. It's more serious, more intense. It's better than Rude Buster, I'd say. I called that it would happen, and it did happen, and I'm very glad that it did, because it goes so hard. But after we beat these Titan fetuses, the Titan Spawn, we fight the Titan. We fight a Titan in Chapter 4. It's insane. It's spectacular. I just can't express it enough. It looks amazing. The soundtrack, Guardian, is amazing. It's a challenging fight, made a lot easier by the aforementioned Black Shard from the Night fight, because the Titan and the Spawn are dark-type enemies. But, like, just insane fight. We can't win. We can't. But when all hope is lost, you know who comes back with an amazing return is the old man Durson. This scene is amazing as well. Just, I don't have much to offer here besides the fact that the old man is one of the best characters in the game so far. He's so wise, he helps the characters a lot, has a pretty consistent character, and here he comes in, clutches up, and helps us no-diff a Titan. So him and Susie do like a dual Rude Buster on the Titan's like shield, and then we get a callback to Susie's idea, that act, where she throws Chris again, but instead she says, "Ah, screw it." And she literally says, "Get dunked on," and takes Chris, and they both jump inside the Titan's like face hole, and explode the Titan from the inside out with the soul. So the soul like seals the Titan the same way that it can seal a fountain, but we go inside of it and like, skadoosh! It's insane. I'm turning into an absolute geek right now because of how freaking cool it is. After that, we finish fighting the Titan. We fall down. Susie is gone. Ronaldo's like, "Where's Susie?" He's like, "Oh no, oh no. He looks terrified. He's like, oh no. So we find out that Susie has gone ahead, which we decided that she wouldn't do anymore, but I guess she forgot because of the excitement, and has seen the final prophecy about what happens at the very end of the legend. And Rousey is horrified at this. And Susie just punches the glass and shatters it and says, ha, yeah, like, that's not going to stop us. Like, I don't care what it says. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to win. So the game doesn't show you what it is, which I think is pretty good for now, because, you know, theory crafting. Susie acts unaffected by it around Rousey. I think she actually is more affected than she acts, especially later on, towards the end, or the last moments of the chapter. But Rousey, she, like, puts... okay, so Susie bleeds. Confirmed now. And she, like, puts her hand on Rousey's face with her bloody hand, and we get this talk sprite of Rousey with blood in his face, and it's so raw. It is so raw. And then we get, like, this last talk with Rousey where he's like, once again, one of the best moments in the game where he's like, I'm smiling. See, it's going to be okay, I'm smiling. And then you can tell him it's okay to not smile, or good, keep smiling. And if you tell him to keep smiling, one of the most heartbreaking things happens, where he's like, yeah, see, I'll keep smiling, we'll go on fun adventures tomorrow and the next day and the next day. He really just is coping so hard. He wants us to have fun in our last moments together. You know, whenever the world ends, or whatever's going to happen at least, he wants us to be happy while it happens. Essentially, is how it feels. If you tell him that it's okay to not smile, that's more character development of him learning that, you know, he can resist. It's okay to not be, you know, obsessively cheerful, and, you know, he's able to be his own person with his own feelings and his own rebellion, even. So, the development here of Rousey is amazing. I can't explain how good that scene is. It's just so good. So please, play the game, see that scene. But we seal the fountain. Toriel is not there at the church. No one's there, actually. And so, we don't really know what happened. Besides that, Toriel just didn't go to choir practice that day. I think it was raining, that's why, so she decided not to go. We go back to Chris's house. And we go in. And Toriel and Sans are breaking it down in the house. Toriel is like drunk off wine, and Sans is kind of just boogieing. And Chris and Susie are just like, we came to save you, and you just are here getting drunk with a almost stranger in your house. So this scene has led to a lot of hate towards Toriel and towards Sans, especially Sans. People are like, I freaking hate Sans for befriending our mom. Like, we need to, you know, team up with Chris to kill Sans or whatever. Sans and Toriel didn't do anything wrong. I'll go ahead and say it. It's not their fault that this happened, but the game does a great job of making you feel just how uncomfortable and how, like, whiplashy that scene is, because you just saw, or at least Susie just saw, a terrifying prophecy that is unbreakable. Well, supposedly unbreakable. Terrifying prophecy. This very tense and sad and, you know, just uncomfortable moments in the dark night outside the house. You walk in, and they're just boom, 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 boom. And they're just, you know, breaking it down in the house. Your mother is drunk, even though she was supposed to be at choir practice, with an almost stranger. And you're like, which, especially after chapter 3, which was, you know, discussing kind of Chris's family and how it hasn't been easy. Imagine how sad Chris must have been in that moment, just seeing Toriel in that state after the discussion of chapter 3, after the haunting moments of chapter 4. I think that this scene kind of does, which Susie just leaves. I'm pretty sure she just dips out. These moments just show how, you know, impacted the characters are. I think Susie is more impacted by the prophecy than she lets on around Rousey, because she seems pretty down here. So the chapter just ends with Chris in their room tossing and turning as Sans and Toriel just keep music even louder throughout the whole night. Chris can't sleep because it's so freaking loud. And this changes depending on which chapter or which route you're in. But either gets a call from the mayor, which is the weird route. The mayor calls and is like, "Hey, Noelle is very excited to see you tomorrow." Wink, wink, because weird route stuff. Or a call from someone on the phone. Might be the knight, might be the mayor, might be the same person, saying, "Don't forget something." Rather, I think Chris then heads out the window, if I recall correctly, to do something. So, don't forget, I guess. And then the game ends, and we get a new opening scene with the legend, where it starts off with the da 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 and the buildings and stuff, and once upon a time, all that kind of stuff. But then it changes. The scene turns blue. It changes octaves in the song, and the song is titled "The Legend?" So it's to me, it's either the legend, as in is it actually set in stone? Or the legend, as in it's not a legend anymore. Is it actually just true? Is it actually just reality? It can go either way. And then we see that it's going to be continued in 2026, next year. 2026, as in next year. That's insane. Next year, Deltarune. More Deltarune next year. We waited almost 4 years, but next year we get more. It's very exciting. So, all in all, these chapters are all that I expected. Well, not that I expected, but because I was very wrong about most of my theories, but are all that I wanted and far more. Amazing chapters. I cannot express how much I love Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4, especially 4. 4 is one of the best things I've ever played, or seen, or witnessed, or thought about ever. I love Chapter 4 so much, and I will die on that hill. So, that's my thoughts on the chapters. Feel free to leave lots of comments down below about your thoughts. If you have gripes or praises for the chapters, say them. I'm curious to see what the general thoughts are about these chapters. I assume mostly positive, but, even I had a few gripes and flaws, so, don't be afraid to say them, right? So, yeah, with that in mind, I'd like to thank our supporters, everyone on Ko-Fi who has supported me, also our Patreon member, Blake the Snake, and these lovely folks for being members on YouTube. And with the biggest shout out of all going to Comluke and Hufflepuff Prefect for being Fruit Salad members, and also to Tybee for being a Crazy Juice tier member. With that in mind, love you guys. Be safe, be smart, don't be stupid, and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time.